Good morning, dear students. So, today we're gonna talk about the most used meaning of design nowadays. That is the way things look and their visual appealing for our eyes. So, let's take a look at the pictures that we find on page 78 of your books. We have here the picture of 3 chairs. Do you think they look nice? Which chair looks the nicest for you? Which one looks the most comfortable? Which one would look better in a different color? And which one would you never consider buying? So you see that sometimes design is a matter of opinion. Now let's match the descriptions 1 to 3 with pictures A to C. A brownish green 1950s style armchair. Letter B. Yes? A dark green rocking chair with a wooden frame. Letter C. A light green armless designer chair. So this is another word that we use a lot, designer. It means designer clothes. They're more expensive, they are exclusive, they are unique. Yes? Now, we're going to do an activity that's very interesting. It's about colors. Sometimes we don't know how to call a color in English because we learned just the simple ones like yellow, orange, and red, yes? But here we have different shades, different colors for you to name. So I want you please to stop the podcast, write the name of the colors under the colors, and then listen and check. Let's listen.
9.5 1,
Gold,
2,
silver,
3,
bronze,
4,
light blue,
5,
dark blue,
6,
bluish green,
7,
yellowish brown,
8,
pinkish orange,
9,
reddish,
10,
ruby,
11,
maroon,
12,
violet,
13,
lavender,
14,
teal,
15,
turquoise,
16,
multicolored.
So it's very interesting to notice that some of the colors would look the same for some people. For me, for example, bluish green and teal are the same. One is a little lighter than the other. And for boys, they say it's a little more difficult to visualize the difference in colors, yes? But for many girls too, like I don't see any difference, for example, between reddish and ruby. I see that here one is darker than the other, but when we don't have anything to compare to, it's hard to name. So of course, guys, you're gonna find different names in different places. Now that you checked, I want you to divide the colors in the correct category. So after you do it, let's pause now. After you do it, you can come here and also pause to check the answers for metal, gems, single color, shade of a single color, combination of colors. So you see that a shade of a single color comes from another color. Light blue comes from blue, dark blue comes from blue. And the combination of colors like bluish green, it's a mix of blue and green. Yellowish brown, pinkish orange. Ruby and turquoise can go in 2 categories because they are both gems and they are single colors. Now, we have this activity here, that now that you have the answers for number 1, you can cover the answers from number 1 and try to write the correct color on number 3. Then you check your answers with number 1, okay? Now, back to design, we're going to watch a video now that has Ava, that wrote a book about design, talking about the importance of design, of good design. Do you think her opinion is that use is more important than style? That use is less important than style? Or that use is as important as style? Let's watch and find out.
Hello and welcome. I'm Tasha Harris. It's time for our weekly book club, and it was an easy choice for me this week. It's a brilliant new book called A Design for Life by the young American author Ava Jansen. This book is selling like crazy. It's non-fiction, which isn't usually my kind of thing, but I absolutely loved it. It tells the history of design, from humanity's ancient stone tools to today's big glass buildings. It's extremely informative, but it's surprisingly fun too. And I'm delighted to welcome Ava to the show.
Good morning.
So Ava, this is an amazingly accomplished debut book, but why design?
My background is in art and I'm incredibly passionate about design. It's my life. But that's not the only reason. I also want to change attitudes.
In what way?
Most people believe that things should look nice, but a lot of people still seem to think that design is always second to function.
What do you mean?
People truly believe that how we use an item is separate from how it looks. I'm here to say that design and function are like a pair of shoes. You can't have one without the other. Okay, time for a test.
What?
Tasha, what can you tell me about the design of this chair?
Okay, it's a simple old wooden chair. It's multicoloured, so we've got light blue or turquoise stripes and gold stripes and teal, that is bluish green stripes.
Good, but you focused on the color and the material. You haven't mentioned the 4 legs, the back, or the armrests, but that's design too. The look and purpose of a product should work together. In fact, this is at the heart of all good design.
And in your book, you use a particularly unusual product to illustrate this.
Yeah, I mean, Tupperware might not be famous for the way it looks, but I think it's a fantastic example of good design. It was invented in 1945 and quickly became popular. There were 2 reasons for this. It had a really important function. People could use it to keep food fresh for longer. And they stacked easily too, so you could store them almost anywhere. These small, colorful plastic boxes weren't just really useful, they were modern and stylish too. One magazine even described them as little art objects. My mother really loved this reddish color. They called it retro red vintage. And that's what good design is all about, creating something that is both beautiful and efficient.
But in your book, you talk about bad design too.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of examples of that.
Let's look at them in part 2. Join us then.
It's very interesting to know the accent, yes? The interviewer is British and the interviewee is American. And Ava thinks that use is as important as style. So boys and girls, I want you to rewind the podcast for you to watch the video again and then complete this exercise. So after you completed exercise 3 by listening again to the video, watching and listening to part 1 of the video, let's check the answers. A lot of people still seem to think that design is always second to function. Design and function are like a pair of shoes. You can't have one without the other. The look and the purpose of a product should work together. Tupperware might not be famous for the way it looks, but I think it's a fantastic example of good design. And that's what good design is all about, creating something that's both beautiful and efficient. Now we're going to move to part 2 of the video, of the show. Ava is going to describe examples of bad design. We're going to see if it is the modern London Underground map or the Sydney Opera House.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Today I'm with Ava Jansen to talk about a brilliantly written book, A Design for Life. Ava, you're going to talk us through the book's final chapter.
Yes, this is my favorite section, when bad design turns good. My first example is something many of you will be familiar with, the London Underground map. The London Underground carries over 1.3 billion passengers each year, and many of them rely on this. It's a small, brightly colored map that's easy to follow, but it hasn't always looked this way. The early maps looked like maps. They followed the actual route of the lines and showed the real location of each station. They were messy and much, much harder to read than today's maps. So what changed? A former Underground employee, Harry Beck, thought that he could create a better map. He straightened the lines and put the stations equal distances apart. This wasn't exactly accurate, but it was extremely useful, and it looked good too. Today, most metro systems have symmetrical, color-coded maps like this, and millions of people use them every day.
And what's your second example?
It's the Sydney Opera House.
But I love that building.
Oh, me too. I mean, it's one of the most famous designs in the world. It perfectly fits the natural surroundings and has become a symbol of both Sydney and Australia. There's only one problem: the sound. For years, musicians complained that they couldn't hear their music clearly, a big problem for an opera house. So when the architect Zaha Hadid built an opera house in Guangzhou, China, she made sure it looked and sounded good. As in Sydney, the Guangzhou Opera House looks amazing. It's a huge glass building that's like nothing else in the world, and the sound is incredible.
So it works on both levels, function and design.
Exactly, as all good design should.
Thank you very much, Ava. And I cannot recommend the book highly enough. It's a fantastic read and looks beautiful too. But that's it from us. Until next time, goodbye.
Very interesting, yes? What can we do with design if we cannot use it? That's what Steve Jobs talked about on the sentence we talked about yesterday or on your first class, yes? Design is nothing if you cannot use. So, she described as a bad example, an example of bad design, the Sydney Opera House. It's beautiful on the outside, but it doesn't work for the purpose it was built. It does not have good sound. So now let's check here. When you listen again, return and watch the video again to choose the correct options. Early London Underground maps were more accurate than today's maps. Yes, today's maps are not accurate. They are simple, but better to look at. Harry Beck made his version of the map more practical. The Sydney Opera House has poor acoustics, so it's hard to hear. The Guangzhou Opera House in China is a good example of design and function working together. So guys, this is it for today. I hope you liked and you enjoyed, and I'll see you next class.